Are you a woman standing at a crossroads, eager for change? It's time to connect with your authentic and empowered self at Boss Leap. Join Dr. Sylvia Morris and Dr. Angela Walker in this empowering community where real-life stories of courageous and talented women inspire and motivate. Engage in honest conversations that foster well-being, drawing from our own journeys. Let us guide you toward profound growth and transformation in both your personal and professional life. Here are your hosts, Dr. Sylvia Morris and Dr. Angela Walker.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Boss Leap. I am Dr. Angela Walker here with my co-host, the fabulous Dr. Sylvia Morris, and we are talking all things money today. One of our favorite subjects, not because we are money hungry, but just because it's an integral part of our life in every way, how we function, how we move in the world, and how we take care of our families. But we specifically have two wonderful guests talking about wealth building and women's financial wealth empowerment. Iyanda Channer-Newman and Heidi Roman, both fantastic financial advisors, planners, all things health and wealth. And so before we get into our guests, Sylvia, tell me a little bit about what, I guess, one of the topics I think that came up was the fear attached to financial health and wealth, and just kind of the fears of money, having it, not having it, what to do with it, how to invest, all of those things. It's a big, broad topic.
It is. No, I'm feeling you, because I think there are a lot of myths in society that says that women aren't good with money, or women can't manage kind of their own finances, and we need someone else, that outside entity, could be, a husband or partner or some person to manage our money. Yeah. My favorite expression is no money, no honey. Because we know that money allows us to do the things that we love with the people we love. So that's really important. But when I think about sort of my own kind of personal fears with money, when my mom died, I was like, okay, I have this nest egg. How do I make it grow? And I was a medical student. So I had to seek help. I got my first financial planner, and kind of the rest is history. And actually, one of our co-authors, Dr. Jessica Osborne, she helped me identify a financial planner who works specifically, mainly with physicians and attorneys, but really kind of helped to chart my path forward. And I'm on my second financial planner. Wow. What about you? What are your, talk to us about some of your money, maybe stressors or goals or thoughts?
Sure. So when I think about finances, I think back to when I was in high school and got my first job. I was 15. I guess I was supposed to be 16, but I got it at 15.
Work permit, we'll say.
And my mom took me to the local bank. I got my bank account, so I knew that I had to put my money in the bank account. And before I went to medical school, I worked briefly pharmaceutical sales. I managed my money well, living on my own. First job, and I had some money in a 401k. Unfortunately, when I left to go to medical school, I took that money out. And that, right? Because we really don't generate an income until, much later. So
we're going to learn about money in 1998, $10,000, and the value in 2025. Stay tuned. Keep listening.
And so, and I will, as I'm always am transparent, along the way, I always felt like we need a financial advance. We've always been secure, so there's not been a struggle. Thanks be to God. But I've always known I need to be talking to somebody that actually knows what they're doing in terms of investing and so we've made some, and when I say we, my husband and I have made some smart moves along the way, but really didn't have a financial planner until within the last 10 years.
But you don't know, but you don't know.
That's right. And now that I do, and that's why I think, having these women on is so essential and crucial, which I'm excited for our audience to hear and to share. And, if I could say anything out of this episode is for anyone listening, if you don't have a financial planner, unless you are one yourself, but it even sounds like Iyanda mentioned that she has her own. If you don't have one, seek one, because some of the money moves I could have made earlier in my career would have made differences in how I
we
move
know
today.
Better. We do better. Right. And we also
and when
have
we know
doctors.
better, we can share that
Yes.
knowledge with others. So that's what we hope to do today. So, yeah. So I guess without further ado, let's get to the people that are going to show us the money.
Yeah.
So we will share with you what I keep want to call them doctors, because I think there are doctors in their own right for what they are imparting the financial health. But Iyanda Channer-Newman and Heidi Roman.
Welcome back to Boss Sleep. I'm Dr. Sylvia Morris, and I'm here with my co-host, Dr. Angela Walker. And we are super excited today because we have not one, but two guests. The first time we have a duo on Boss Sleep. We have financial gurus today. So we want to welcome to the show Heidi Roman and Iyanda Channer-Newman. Welcome to Boss Sleep.
Thank you, ladies. Great to meet you.
Yes. Well, we were so excited that you all took us up on the invitation to be here. I'm just, for lack of better words, going to call you money women, because that's what you do. That's what you're gifted in, and the knowledge that you impart. We actually met Iyanda at a Georgetown function and marveled at the panel that you were on, and it was very clear that you were passionate about your work, and not only just helping individuals, but as a community in general, just passing on knowledge in terms of financial health and wealth and all of those things. So we're going to just start off with some of our basics, because it's nice to know who you are and where you kind of started from. So I'll just start with you, Iyanda, and ask what you wanted to be when you were growing up.
Yeah. From I was 8 years old, I wanted to be an attorney. Didn't pan out that way, but I'm very happy with my decision. And it's funny because now I serve a lot of attorneys. So people joke and be like, "Oh, like you're an attorney by association?" Not at all. And I remember when I told my family, I was like, "Oh, I'm going to do finance." They're like, No. They're like, "I'm Jamaican." So like, you can be one of three things. You can be an engineer, a doctor, or a lawyer. So are you in a med school? And I was like, no. So here we are.
Yeah, very good. And how about you, Heidi?
So my story was a little bit more different. I wanted to be an archaeologist when I was a kid, because I just love history, and I love the idea of traveling. And then I learned just how the process of becoming an archaeologist, and really, you really don't make that much money in the beginning. And so I ended up focusing on international business. And then somehow I ended in fashion, and I pivoted into finance. I know.
Hence the pink jacket, but okay.
Yes.
So Heidi, keep going on that string. How did you get into finance?
Great question. So I knew I wanted to pivot into finance after I taught myself how to trade, and I learned just how many things I wasn't doing that I could have been doing.
Wait, I'm sorry. You taught yourself how to trade stocks?
Precisely, in options, which is a little bit more complicated than stocks. So
you might want to tell us what an option is.
Yeah, so an option is a contract on a particular stock, and essentially you are either trading so that the stock is going to go up or the stock is going to go down. That said, the contracts are for 100 shares per contract. So typically, if you buy a share of Microsoft, you're buying one singular share at a time, unless you're buying, let's say, multiple single shares. Whereas an option allows you to buy contracts. Each contract consists of 100 stocks, 100 shares, excuse me, of that stock. It's a very, very high level overview of what that is, but it's riskier because you can hold the stock forever. Whereas an option, it's guided by a certain period of time. So maybe you're betting that you're assuming that the stock is going to go up in 3 months and it doesn't, then you're going to lose everything, right? Because the contract does expire.
But if it goes up, high risk, high reward.
Precisely. Yeah.
And can I just go back to the fact that you learned this on your own?
Yeah, I did. I taught myself how to trade and how to trade options. And then I was looking back at all my assets and I recognized that there was so much that I didn't know. And then through the grace of God, I met who became my mentor. She was Marie. She was the former president of Citicorp. And I just, she basically guided me through this process. I really am where I am, I believe, because of her seeing something in me that I didn't recognize at that time.
So we're going to put a pin in that because I want us to make sure that we talk about how you connected with the president of Citicorp.
Yeah.
But either way, yes. But Iyanda, how did you get into finance?
So I did not have a linear path to finance. So when I graduated, I ended up in like capital markets. So working directly with hedge funds, portfolio managers, and so on. I was like 8 months.
I'm going to be the interruption queen today because there's a lot of nomenclature that I know that we hear out. It's in the lexicon. So for us lay people or non-money people, what is a hedge fund?
Yeah, great question. So a hedge fund is an institution where basically it's very high risk. They work with like accredited investors. So think people who are multimillionaires, higher risk, higher reward. Their deal basically is like, you give us your money, we'll beat the market by using like these complex, innovative ways.
Okay.
Very high demanding, very quick turnover. So think like Citadel, Tiger Global, think companies like that. So I work directly with their like hedge fund portfolio managers, so the people who are running the portfolios where they have all these dollars of their clients. And so within 2 months, I was like, this is not for me. But I saw it as a vehicle for me to basically stack and save, as they say, start my first startup company. So both my parents are entrepreneurs. So when I told them like I wanted to like basically transition out and do my own thing, they were like, go, go, go. And so
beautiful.
I was able to tie into like my Jamaican heritage and culture. And so I started this company called Infuse Co. And we still have, we're on an e-commerce platform now, hair oil, Jamaican castor oil that we shipped in from Jamaica in like different blends. And sold them. So after that, I was like, okay, maybe I'm gonna go into like venture capitalism. So my friend, who's also a Georgetown Hoya, was the chief business officer of this startup company at the time, Ivy Camps USA. And she was like, you do really good with startups. Like, come do the same thing you did with yours for mine. And so that was pretty interesting because it's very different to look at the financials of a startup company versus a hedge fund, which is already a traditional financial institution. So for me, I basically pulled the thread and I was like, the one thing I like about all of these are the numbers. So I didn't like the first function of finance, and startup was not as liquid and very volatile, to say the least. So I was like, I need to find my function. Fast forward, the managing director of this office here, who's also a Hoya. So as you can see, it's common thread. Love my Hoyas.
Yes.
The connection.
I'm telling you. And it was just like divine timing. Like I finished up my startup projects and I was like, what's next? And then he messages me, Milan Suri, and he's like, I think you should come back to finance. And I was like, I don't know if I really like finance. And he said something. He was like, you like finance, you just don't like that function of finance.
Okay.
And that's when my wheels started turning. And he was like, this basically is everything that you shared with me that you wanted. Because I told him I wanted to be around people that had integrity and were ambitious. I wanted to do good and make money. I don't think they have to be
Yes.
exclusive.
Me too.
And that was a huge tenement for me, and be able to basically impact, my community, but then also like the generations to come after that as well. So for me, I was like, let's do it. And now here we are.
So my next question, sorry, Sylvia, my next question, because I do believe I can learn anything that I put my mind to. What you all are doing, no, I cannot. I need some basics. And so I'm going to assume some of our listeners are the same. So I'm going to ask a couple of, probably some questions that are just really simple and basic. And one of them is, having financial or educational debt. Can you tell us how you would manage educational debt, which for some of us that have gone to professional school will have that coming out, while saving at the same time?
This is a common thing we see with a lot of our professionals. I would say, rule of thumb, look at the interest rate. Anything above 10%, we consider, okay, this is a lot higher. Anything below
What? I have about 3, 4, 5, maybe 6.
Private loans.
Yes.
Private loans, yes. So anything below 8%, that's great. But we'll really tell them, it really depends also on like what matters to them. But let's say like if your interest rate is below 8%, there shouldn't be a huge sense of urgency to pay that down. What we would say, as aggressively, what we would say, because student loan debt is good debt, credit card debt is bad debt. So it's really good debt on your balance sheet. I know it doesn't feel that way, but it is.
And tell us why it's good.
So it's good debt because, one, the government looks at you as an outstanding citizen. You're trying to invest in your education. And that's why federal loans are a lot lower interest rate wise. So you'll get 5 to like 8%, which is really good. So for example, I'm working with a lawyer who is going into her second year. She has significant amount of debt. However, they're all from 5 to 7%. So what we're doing with her, based on what she shared with us, the strategy we created for her, is she pays the minimums, and what she does with like the excess dollars, she's putting into the market. Because when you look at it, the market performed 28% last year. If you didn't have a pawn in the market, you missed out. Equities alone, at the very least, will give you a 10% back on your investment. So when we're thinking about how to pay this down, it's not about being aggressive, it's about being strategic. So with lower interest rates, you can pay the minimum, use the difference and invest, take that and pay it down more aggressively. And then you'll have more to spread around. If it is usually a higher interest rate, we do have a strategy to pay that down efficiently, but we also want to make sure that you're not cash poor at the end of the day as well. So probably offsetting some of that in some other vehicles. It really depends. Some people like a permanent life insurance policy because how it works, it doesn't work like how you think your regular term policies would work. So it's like, okay, I just get a death benefit. With a permanent life insurance policy, it's like a nesting egg. So you'll have access to dollars while you're alive, which are also tax-free. And there's no limitations as far as like what you can put in, what you can take out. So there's a bunch of different vehicles, but I would say rule of thumb, to keep it very simple, if it's below 8%, do the minimums and find a vehicle or speak to someone to put your money into something that can garner you a return.
Okay.
So when you talk about, Heidi, speaking to someone that has financial knowledge that you can trust, how does one, maybe someone who is just starting out early in their career, how do they know who to talk to get reliable, in my world, I would say evidence-based information, but we want reliable, safe information?
So it's a question, if you're starting off and you might not be as aware or rather well-versed in this area, who can you be speaking with to kind of get that information and from someone that you trust and can rely on? Did I hear that right?
Yes, and then also just for newer investors, perhaps your family has a history of saving at a bank or in CDs, more seemingly safe traditional methods, but you don't have an investment account, you don't have a broker, those things.
Yeah, that's a great question. I really believe that we don't know, we don't know. And finances, to begin with, they come with enveloped with a lot of fear, right? And a lot of shame sometimes, because it's a fear
Yes.
of you being judged by the fact that maybe there are items that you can be including in your portfolio, or assets that you could be including in your portfolio that will garner perhaps a higher return. I always tell people that the first rule of thumb would be to have a conversation with a financial advisor. Look at, who in your area, whom that you know, because possibly there's someone that you know that you trust that has a financial advisor that they're currently speaking with. Ensure that they are a fiduciary. A fiduciary is a person, a financial professional who has taken a vow, an actual certification to ensure that anything that they recommend is in the client's best interest, in your best interest. And there's also a bit of a misconception between an asset manager and an advisor. Typically, a wealth manager is going to, hey, let me take your money and I'll invest that money. And it's worth understanding how the costs are structured between the two. Whereas an advisor is always going to lead with a financial plan. And so they're going to be looking at what your hopes, what your goals are, and then formulate a strategy that's going to accomplish, right? And it's going to see how to get you to that location, to that goal more seamlessly. And that's, I suppose, the first area where I would start to kind of just get a little bit more well-versed in this topic. There's obviously a lot of information available to us in online, which is great, especially for younger adults. The challenge is that these topics tend to be very general. Your needs might be different from,
Yes.
Sylvia's needs. Even if on paper you guys are making the same amount of money, your goals are going to differ. And so the strategy that may work for Sylvia may not work for you, Angela. Hence, I suppose the great benefit of having a financial advisor that you can work with and grow with, because these are going to be long-term relationships that you build, right? We have an accountant, we have everything else. An advisor is somebody that is going to be possibly one of the top three individuals in your life and in your future.
Now, this is a simplistic question. I just don't know the answer. So in terms of obviously the two of you, which we'll have in our show notes at the end, give you an opportunity to let our listeners know how to find you. I'm in Georgia. Can I use a financial advisor from New York? Can I use someone from California? Are there state laws that come into play in terms of certain investment opportunities?
So the short answer is yes and no. And so typically when an advisor has to broker it, right? That they're brokering with. And so for us, we choose to broker with, for example, Northwestern Mutual. Now, the company themselves, Northwestern Mutual, is going to have access, is going to be legally able to provide investment advice in the continental US, and also Hawaii. And so if you're in Atlanta and we are in New York, we can have a relationship, because through our brokerage firm, we have access to everybody legally to be able to provide financial advice to anybody in the US. Yeah.
Okay, great. Good to know.
It's helpful. And I know that part of your mission, Iyanda, you talked about doing good, but also making money, is, I'm going to describe it, and please help me, as sort of women's empowerment and wealth building and financial independence. So as you work with women, what are some of the biggest financial mistakes that women make?
One, I would say, is money blindness, which I would even coin and say is like the next epidemic. If we don't know how much we're spending, we don't know how much we're saving, there's not much financial planning that can be done. That's the very first step. Self-awareness and self-management are two different things, but we can't get to the self-management until we're self-aware. And what I've found is, like, it's very easy to be money blind in this era. You tap away on this phone, you don't know how much is going. I've had a lot of my clients switch back to like traditional measures of having cash.
Cash in little envelopes, it works.
Literally. Changed my life. I swear by it. It's like when you break 100, you feel that.
You
Okay, I had
do.
100, now I have 20 or 10.
Hmm.
Versus I could just tap away all day. So I think money blindness is one. Heidi touched a little bit about the fair. I work with some people and they are very good at saving and they'll stash away, but they'll never look at it. Which I believe is another form of money blindness. What usually feeds that is fair, or they've been told like finances isn't their realm. And I would disagree. So when I do meet with clients, one thing that I try to do is like, as we're going through this together, I want to ensure that they understand this just as much as I do. Because my goal is like, when I'm done with you, I've left you better than I found you, and you can be a financial steward. You can be a steward of your own finances, which is really important. And I feel like that's where the empowerment comes in. Because you could give me your finances, I could go to work on that plan, bring it back to you, give you all that money. But if you don't understand how that was done, how can you tell your daughter? How can you tell your nieces, your nephews? So yeah, and another thing I'd say is that a lot of women, I use this phrase a lot, when you empower a woman, you empower a village, which is amazing. That's one of the pros, because women are community builders. We're the heart, I would say. And what you'll find is that they tend to put themselves last in that equation, which is one of the cons, because they are so focused on their village, are so focused on their community. There's a gap, and they take care of themselves last or not at all.
Just like in health.
Exactly.
Exactly. The parallels are there. So precisely. So a part of like when I'm meeting with them is, who's taking care of you? Who's making sure you're fine? And if we're not taking care of you, how can you take care of the village? So yeah.
And may I add to that, if it's
Yes.
okay?
Yeah.
It's interesting because even with women alone, right? I think that we choose to hyper focus on working with women because of the historical disparity of women's involvement in finance. And when we think about how by the end of this decade, women are expected to control about $30 trillion, it's such, to me, like, it's such a profound concept. And just this year alone, women are adding 5 trillion to that wealth annually. And
Trillion with a T.
with a
T.
T, right? And even to Iyanda's point, oftentimes we connect with women and they're not even looking at their money. And it's again this sense of fear or inadequacy for some reason, even though the women that we are talking with are, they're bosses in their own right. They're smart, multifaceted women, and they're smart. And it's a very curious case that we hope to kind of reduce and minimize that gap between how women feel about finance, not just how they see it, and how they activate it in their everyday life. Yeah.
Very good. Very good. You guys are definitely giving us pearls of wisdom here. And I want to ask a question. I'm going to give you a little preface of my story, and whoever wants to go, maybe Heidi. I want to know kind of some of the biggest financial mistakes or financial myths that hold women back. But I'm going to tell you, as a physician, I've had several practice situations. And one was working for a company or a practice that didn't have a 401k at the time. And my husband, I had been married since before medical school, so very a good job and great benefits, 401k, all of that. And so that was going well. But when I look at money growth at the end of where we are, the period of time that I was not contributing to a 401k is so significant. I would imagine this is probably one of the areas that you would talk about. I didn't realize that you could have a solo, or I guess a solo 401k, but I learned that later. But I wonder if you can just talk about some of the maybe financial myths that hold women back, but maybe just address, like my situation. I don't know how often you see that.
We see that quite often. And I think that, well, let's start with the myths. I think for a lot of women, there's this idea that they can run everything else except their finances. How can you figure that out on your own? Like, who knows? I mean, you both R&Ds, and so clearly you're smart and capable.
But we run
And
our household. So it's
yes.
interesting to me
Mhm.
how we're in charge to run the household, but we cannot run our own money.
Money.
Precisely. And so I think there are layers that come with that. And so you're getting in the workforce, and then you have this kind of subconscious belief. I do believe that the mindset really adds to this. You have this subconscious belief that finances are something that you let somebody else deal with, most notably men, and that's okay. And so to Ayanda's point, it's like, how do we make you see that you need to become a steward in your own financial planning life? Because if so, then maybe Angela, we would have advised, well, maybe right now your company's not allowing you to contribute to a 401k, but let's actually contribute to an IRA, a Roth IRA.
Yes.
Explain to you the benefits, the tax benefits of that. Once you start contributing or having the capacity through your employer to contribute to a 401k, we're still going to keep continuing to contribute to the Roth, because at the end, it's going to be more tax efficient, right? Everything that's going to be growing in the Roth is going to be tax defer. And ultimately, when it's time for you to take out that money, it's going to be tax-free money. Everything in your 401k is going to be taxed as ordinary income, the highest there is, right? To your point of a solo 401k, it's more ideal when you are a business owner. But again, there are more tax implications to that. And it sounds like after that first, part, you ended up going and working for another employer that offered
Yes.
you that benefit. So it's about, again, understanding your experience, understanding the goal, building that strategy to meet that goal and ultimately fulfill that vision.
Yeah. Thank you.
Most
Yeah.
welcome.
Concur.
So we're out, we're making money, we are doing all the things, the houses, the saving for our children's education, cars, trips, all of those things. Iyanda, how do we balance living for today but planning for the future?
This is where I would say there are times we're really good at being focused on what we need to achieve in the moment, right? We're really good at focus on things that have a date. I think it's really essential, and I strongly believe everyone should have a financial team, so that they can figure out the things that you don't plan for, right? Because there are things on our calendar that there are no dates on. It's not on anyone's bingo card for your relative to pass away. It's not on your bingo card for someone to lose like their house and they have to come live with you, and now you have to offset prices and so on. And so
Yeah.
some of the best people, like some of my most successful clients, I'm just part of like probably 2 or 3 of their financial team. So it really helps when you have a team, not just one, but like a team of financial strategists that you can lean on. And one thing that makes it really special about that relationship is that you guys should be meeting annually, because as you can anticipate, life changes, and as such, your plan should evolve and change with you. So you should have your financial advisor, you should have your CPA, and then maybe you have another financial strategist on the side, and they should all be working together to ensure that your goals are still on par and that you can delegate, enjoy your life, and know like, okay, I have these 3 people working together, and based on what they told me, if I keep on this track, I'm going to be successful. I can still go to the Bahamas 3 times a year. I can buy my new car, and all is taken care of.
There you go.
But to Heidi's point, you don't know what you don't know. And there's also like a myth that we have to figure it out on our own, which is the furthest thing from the truth. So I would suggest delegating, finding your team, and also audition them. I went through like 6 FAs before I chose one. I'm a little picky. I did the same thing with my therapist, but it's really important that you find someone that, no, true story.
But it's like finding a hairstylist too.
There you
I
go.
get that.
Exactly.
Gotta
Someone
audition
could
them.
be like the best financial advice, but it might not be a good fit for you, right?
You.
So I would say like, yeah, talk to different advisors, feel them out, allow them to give you the plan, and have your team set up so that when those things happen, you don't have to panic. nothing gives me greater joy than a client calling me panicking, and I'm like, we don't have to worry. We planned for this. Like, you're gonna be fine.
Love it.
I
That's who
called my
want.
financial planner in tears. Must have been like 2016 or 2017.
Uh-huh.
I had gone on 10 interviews with this company that shall remain nameless.
Right.
And then they finally called me after that 10th interview and said that I wasn't a good fit. Now, it's a blessing in disguise. But when I tell you, I was like, I don't have any money. And of course, my portfolio was sitting there. And she's like, you'll be fine. How much do you need?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay. But I boo-hooed.
Doesn't that make like all the difference?
Does. And so I'm going to circle around to, we're at this stage now, so we do have some experience and definitely echo having a financial advisor. And we've talked to, even young students about doing that, particularly medical students, getting that in line now. So along, that theme, if you're early in your financial journey, and let's just say in your 20s and your 30s, where do you begin? I mean, I'm thinking from the standpoint where I was at 23. I don't have money to spend to give somebody to a financial advisor. So what do you tell that person?
That's a great, first of all, to us, the earlier you start, the better, because then you have more room for compound, right? For the compound effect, which is amazing. You get to put less and get more at the end because you have time. You have the element of time. And so when you're starting off.
Could you elaborate a little bit on the compounding effect?
Absolutely. So we know that when it comes to building wealth on the long term, there are two aspects that are most important. There's going to be putting money into something, and then there's time. And so, but one is actually more important than the other. It's not about how often you put or how much you put, it's rather for how long, right? Because we understand that, for example, if you, without giving anybody age away, but let's say if you in 1989, if your parents would have put in $10,000 into the S&P, right?
Yes.
And that $10,000 wouldn't have put not one more dollar into it, just decided to reinvest the dividends year over year, without even just doing calculations in my head. Just briefly, you would have had close to $450,000 off of that $10,000.
So $10,000
Yeah.
in 1989 to
Yes.
March of 2025,
Yes.
$400,000.
I might be
That's real
off by
money.
I might be off by a few digits, but yes.
The fact
Yes.
that you could do it in your head really
Yeah.
tells me you are the money lady.
No.
So
No, but because you have to consider in 1989, the S&P was about $300. Today is about $5,600. And what's happening is that year over year, that money is adding, it's growing. Your interest is getting interest, and that money is getting reinvested. And so it's growing, it's growing, it's growing, it's buying more, and it's worth more. And so when you're a younger individual, you're in your 20s, you don't have a lot of money, you have debt.
Yes.
The bare minimum is going to make such a difference in the long term. Maybe you start with a simple Roth IRA. You can contribute today up to $7,000, but maybe that's even $10,000, $7,000 may be too much. Do 500. Something is better than nothing, because in the end is going to compound, and it's going to be way more than what you expected and anticipated over the 30-year span before you tap into it.
Great advice. So even just as simple as a Roth IRA for that.
Always the Roth is
young person.
possibly the first route. Yeah.
And of course, the time is the biggest factor, is what I'm hearing. And it also sounds like we ought not, you would recommend that we not touch whatever vehicle. So if we put in a Roth IRA, if we put it in, even in a simple savings account, you're like, put the money there and let it sit there. Don't pull it out.
Well, yes, I know. The simple savings account, unless it's a high yield savings account, we will not recommend a regular savings account, because your money is appreciating in value, right?
Is that like putting it underneath my mattress?
Precisely.
Okay.
And we know long term, cash is going to be the riskiest asset to have because it loses value. It doesn't even keep with the rate of inflation, right? So maybe in the checking, you keep as much as you need for your monthly bills. Everything else, high yield savings until you get a little bit more proficient, right, on investments intelligence, and then you take it from there.
Got it. So you ladies are wonderful at what you do. We know that. And I heard someone mention a mentor. And just as successful career women, what do you think about how leaders can better support women that are early in their career? What could you have used, or what can you use? How can we support you better?
Yeah. Iyanda, you want to take this?
Sure. I strongly believe by the lift as you climb model. A lot of people believe that they can't take on mentees or they can't help anyone until they've reached the peak of their career. I would beg to differ, just because I feel like it's important to make yourself a conduit for other people. Throughout my life, I've always had someone paying it forward to me. And I think it's important that when you get in spaces with people, especially young girls that look like us, it's important to extend the olive branch and say, hey, a lot of times I've made the initiative and I'm like, hey, I'd love to like do coffee, or like, what are you interested in? What are some things I can help you with? I always offer, and I'm like, hey, this is my LinkedIn. If you want to connect with anyone, I'll personally make those introductions. Because, a lot of people are figuring it out. And I know when I was younger, I thought I had to have like this linear path. And it was mentors throughout every stage of my life, throughout different verticals, that were like, that is a bunch of BS. There's no such thing as a linear life. But you do need people that you can lean on and that can support you and connect you with other people. So I pride myself on being like a mass connector. If I know anyone in my network, that's the first thing I'm offering up. Who is someone you'd like to connect to? What are some things that you're interested in? How can I make that possible for you? So yeah, I found a lot of success in that, from them coming back to me and being like, okay, I figured out this is not what I want to do, or this is exactly what I want to do, or this person introduced me to this person. So I think making the connections and going out your way to, one, speak with them, but let them know that you're approachable and more than happy to help. Yeah.
I love that idea of being a conduit for others. And it's definitely how I feel mentorship should be.
Yeah, and I would also like to add to that, right? We're starting off, and we are also, to Iyanda's point, we're offering our resources because I think it's so valuable. You don't know how much of an impact you can have in somebody's life, even though you may feel like you're not at the pinnacle, right? But more than that, I think as an established career woman, it's so gratifying when you see someone seeing something in you that maybe otherwise you would have missed. To me, that's my story, right? My mentor literally stopped me, and she was like, hey, like, you should be doing this. And I thought, like, okay, tell me more. And she took it upon herself. She had no need to share that, her resources, her time, but the fact that she felt compelled to extend her network, her experience, her knowledge, to me, it's something that I will always be grateful for, right? We don't know how much a person can impact us until we try.
Very good. Thank you for sharing that. And certainly, Heidi and Iyanda, you both have made leaps from one opportunity to the next. Could you both sort of share your kind of thought process, or how you make the decision to move to the next opportunity?
Yes. My answer is going to be really short: through the grace of God. Never did I ever think whatever my first step would lead me to my second step, to my third step, to my fourth step. Not at all. But I did go into every opportunity and I said, I'm going to give it my all. And whatever happens out of this, I know I'm going to be proud of because I put my all into it. I think taking a leap is the most courageous thing you could do, especially when you don't know what's on the other end. So yeah, through the grace of God. Step by step.
Very good. Very good. And you, Heidi?
I have to agree. I think for me, it's about faith. It's about trust. It's about knowing that things are always working out in my favor because
Yes.
even though, and it's something you said earlier, Sylvia, right? You thought that when you were interviewing with that company that you were at a standstill, and then it turns out in retrospect, right? Hindsight is always often 2020, that it was a blessing in disguise. And I think you're always divinely led. There's nothing that
Yes.
is going to happen that is not going to lead you towards somewhere better if you're open to that. And trusting in that, I feel that it doesn't matter which way I go, I'm going to end up where I need to be. And it's going to be better than what I thought. That's just been my experience.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen. So we have, Sylvia and I have a bond from Georgetown and through life experience, girls trips, a book that we wrote, the game plan with our other co-authors, and now Boss Sleep. I know you all have a bond, and just curious. I'd love to hear stories about how people have come together in life. Can you give us shed a little light on how you all met and how you end up working together? Iyanda, if you want to go first.
Yeah. So when I initially came to the company, my managing director, who grandfathered me in, as I like to say, was like, there is someone that you must meet. And I was like, okay, I just got here. Let's go. And I met with Heidi. We did a couple of cases together, and it was just like we met, we clicked, that was it. There's no like crazy story behind it. It was just like a puzzle piece fitting into each other perfectly. And from there, we were able to realize like, wow, we have a lot in common. We share like the same goals as far as how we want to impact our community and generational planning, which is really important to us with a hyper focus on women. And from there, it's just been really good. And just continued to work together at a cadence that makes sense. She'll shoot me cases, I'll shoot her cases. And it's really nice to work with someone who is like-minded and really thinks long-term and building something with intention, for sure.
Yeah.
Heidi, you want to add to
Really.
that?
Yeah, I was on the opposite end where it was like one of our managing directors was like, you need to meet Ayanda. And I was like, okay, let's do it. And I didn't know that he was saying the same things to her. And again, we ended up
Right.
meeting. So I was the first female to break a certain record in our company. And then Ayanda
Awesome.
became the second one. And it was
Oh,
so
beautiful.
cool because it's like,
Awesome.
okay, we definitely need to be able to continue kind of like building each other and fostering this type of relationship, because at the end of the day, I am interested in ensuring that no matter who I am with and surrounding myself with, they are the best they can be, because that's a reflection on me, right? I think this is all saying like you want to be the least smartest person in the room.
Right.
And that's why I always hope to aspire to be, because I know I'm surrounding myself with really smart people, particularly very smart women. And so, yeah, that's very smart, as you can clearly tell. And so it was easy.
done.
Right
It
back
was
at you.
easy. Thank you. It was
Nice.
easy for us to get along.
Yeah, literally.
Beautiful.
Thank you for sharing that. On Boss Sleep, we always ask, our final question is about self-care. So we spend a lot of time talking about money. For me, money is a tool to do good things. So how, Iyanda, you first, please tell us, how do you practice self-care?
Yeah, this is something that I haven't been the best at since.
Aspirational,
It's
it's
okay.
okay. We're all
Yeah.
learning.
So recently, what I've been learning is, so I live by my calendar. If it's not on my calendar, it doesn't exist. So what I'll do now is I'll put in my calendar at least 3 things a week for me. Personal care
Awesome.
could be 30 minutes to an hour, and it also gives me
Yes.
something to look forward to
Mhm.
throughout the week outside of work. For me, I was the kind of person that I will work. If I sit here in front of my computer, I will work until tomorrow. So I needed to create some boundaries. So those give me the boundaries. And then self-care for me, I love a good massage. I like eating good food with my family and friends. So I'm pretty simple there. So as long as I have that going on, I'm good. But I think it's about identifying what fills your cup and then intentionally
Yes.
setting aside time for that.
Love that.
Agreed. Yeah.
Heidi?
How about you, Heidi?
She does love a good meal. I have to.
We bonded over tacos.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's another thing we bonded over, because yeah, food is
Food.
very important. Good food, that is.
Yes.
Yes.
For me, I think Similarly to Ayanda, I think that you can get so lost in if it's not on the calendar, it's hard for you to keep up. There's a sense of, a sense of organization when I have everything on there. But I learned early on that I need to focus on my mental expansion so that I could be more available to that and those that need my attention. And the way that I personally do that, if I don't meditate twice a day, then it's a challenge for me. And Ayanda will say she's been there when I've only had an experience where maybe I might have missed that. It's just I feel that I am off. It's a gift that I give to myself, and it's a practice that I've been doing for quite some time now. And I really think it's important for me. I really enjoy my own company. I enjoy spending time with myself and my house because I love my setting and I like feeling like I don't have to worry about anything that's going on the outside. And so often our days are so busy. It's nice to come home and know that there's peace and I can find this consistent peace in this beautiful space that I've created for myself. And lastly, just spending really thoughtful time with the people that I feel are teaching me something that I can learn from, that are challenging me, that I can listen to people that I admire. And I try to be very intentional about that.
Love that. Very, very nice. Lots of wisdom, ladies.
How do you do the self-care though?
Oh, wow. You threw it back.
No.
Oh, she threw it back.
This is the way straight.
So it's interesting. I'm going to echo for myself a lot of what you all said and what I've told patients for years is that if you don't put self-care on your calendar, it doesn't happen. You can have the best intentions, but other things take the place. And I think part of putting it on the calendar is making you accountable to yourself, but you're also telling other people this is on my calendar. And so other people in your life know, oh no, this is her time where she's going to the gym, or no, she's, meditating at this hour. And so they know that's your boundary as well. So it's not only important for you to set the boundaries for yourself, but for others. But in terms of self-care, walking, it's kind of the easiest thing I can get done. And I love walking outside, just being in nature anywhere I am. It's running used to be, Sylvia can tell you that, but my body tends to ask for walking these days. Instead, I need a good massage now and then. I'm not as great about doing that, Iyanda, but yeah, that, and I have incorporated, well, I've always prayed in the morning. But making an absolute intention of doing that before I step out of bed, and then meditating. So I do kind of a guided meditation. I'm not as great as doing anything by myself because I'll fall asleep, but a guided meditation. So those are, again, I like what you said, Heidi, gifts to myself. So yeah, that's my regimen. How about you, Sylvia?
I like that. I think this is the first time a guest has asked us a question. So this is wonderful. I too meditate. I'm a big fan of Jay Shetty and the Calm app, and I listen to that definitely daily. And then the one thing that I've incorporated most recently is just a gratitude list. And I have a notes, in the notes section on my phone. And it's like photos and maybe a text message that someone sent to me, or I arrived at work safely, or I was working with one of my favorite nurses. So it's just little things. And in an ideal world, I add 8 to 10 things daily. And so gratitude. And I'm a big walker, and I have a huge kind of beauty self-care routine, but that's for another episode.
Yes.
That's interesting. I learned something new about Sylvia. I thought I knew everything about her. I like the gratitude in my phone because I always think I love the idea of a gratitude journal, and I do have one beside my bed. I don't always get to it, but if I had it in my phone at the moment, adding that in there and reflecting on that. That's beautiful. Thank you,
truthfully,
Heidi.
my favorite
Welcome.
place to do it is if I'm flying, because sometimes the Wi-Fi is a little spotty, at least, but you can make a list. So I love that. So anyway, but yes, thank you.
Love that.
Yeah, ladies. Oh my goodness. Well, I mean, there's so much about finance that we can share with our listeners. And part of, my goal in kind of sharing health and wellness coaching is, taking care of our mind, which I think controls everything, our physical health, our mental health, emotional health, but also financial health, because if your financial affairs are not in order, that can affect all of the above. So what you're doing is definitely impactful for us as women and caretakers for our families. So we thank you. Before we go, is there anything that you would like to? We definitely want to share your contact information, but anything that you would like to share with our audience?
Don't be afraid of the
Iyanda.
unknown, and no question is too small or dumb.
Good. Very
And
nice.
it's also just, it doesn't matter where really so much where you are, it's where you want to go, and start, take that leap and start looking into your finances and becoming more submerged in that experience, so that ultimately you can build a better outcome for yourself. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, Heidi Roman and Iyanda Channer-Newman, thank you so much for joining us today on Boss Sleep and sharing your story. May you be well.
Thank you so much. Same to you guys.
All right, ladies.
Likewise. Be
Until
safe.
next time.
Thank you for doing this. This is amazing.
That was a fantastic conversation with Iyanda Channer-Newman and Heidi Roman. Angela, I learned so many pearls that are going to help myself and our audience make more money. And really, it's not necessarily about making more money. It's about creating wealth and financial independence.
Yes.
What pearls did you take home?
Well, obviously a lot. And they just kind of reinforce some of the things that I did not know when I was younger that I now know that I wish I had known. But money blindness.
Yes.
Yes.
What
a concept, right? And you can work all your life and, put this money in a checking account and savings account, but essentially be blind to the fact that you are not making smart decisions or the most advantageous decisions with your money. So I think it is imperative. I always want to learn, and I think this is one of the areas what I want to continue to learn about, because my goal is not to be the richest woman in the world. I don't think that, money buys you happiness. I am, I think, wise enough at this stage in life, but it certainly does allow you to do some of the things that can bring you joy. And travel is one of those for me. So I want to be more financially savvy. I guess one of the practical things is the off topic of money, but in terms of self-care, is making it a gift to yourself. I think that's what Heidi said. I loved that idea of it being something that you're giving yourself, and it's truly a gift that you give yourself. You don't have to wait for gifts from somebody else. And I think the third topic is just very practical, is just like with physicians, the first doctor that you go to might not be the right fit. Doesn't mean that they're
audition them. Wasn't that
audition.
great?
Yep. Audition your advisor. And we just happened, to, when my dad passed away, he had this big folder that he had given to me, at least 6 years beforehand. But it had everything. It had everyone that he wanted me to call. He had what he had plans for his funeral. He had all of his financial information in that. It was such a huge gift that he gave to me. And so, because, again, we had not been using a financial planner, we just happened to use, I said, if my dad trusted them and he did such a good job, I'm going to go ahead and use them. And so I didn't audition anyone, and it's been a good experience.
But your dad had, and completely vetted
and you
them.
know he did. And you know he did.
Woo.
Yes. So yeah, audition advisors, but I think it's a great, and certainly if anyone's, looking for one, we can vouch for the two women that were here today. So how about you, Sylvia? What did you take away?
Yes, I like the concept of being a steward of your financial life, because that just implies that I'm empowered. I have a team on my financial plan, and it is not where I am. So if you have $3 in your savings account, it's about where you're going. And we know that if we don't plan, then we plan to fail. If we don't have a plan, I think it's something about then we're planning to fail.
Fail to plan, you plan to fail.
Thank you. If you fail to plan, you fail. Thank you very much. That's why we have a co-host. So yeah, those were my biggest take homes. And I was just so impressed, but that's really not the right phrase. I was so just excited to hear that both Iyanda and Heidi are committed to women's empowerment and financial independence for women. They talked about how women, there's so much, I think 30 trillion. We can listen. You've already listened to the podcast,
money.
so
Don't
you
give me
know.
quoting dollars, but
yes,
it was
a lot of money with the
trillions. Yes.
is coming into the hands of women.
Yes.
So that means that we want to be good financial stewards.
Yes.
And we have to have a good team around us. So yes, that was it. So many things. And I know this is just a starting point of our conversation on money, and then hopefully definitely with Heidi and Iyanda in the future.
Yeah, I would love. Yeah, I think I don't even have to go out and ask. I know that women are searching for this information and seeking the information and need this information. So, so excited to share this with you all. And we appreciate you as always for following us. And we hope that you will continue to join us for the next episode of Boss Leap. But until then, may you be well.
Yeah, please continue to like, share, and subscribe. And thank you very much. May you be well.
That's a wrap on another episode of Boss Leap. May this conversation enlighten your path toward personal growth and professional empowerment. For more thought-provoking and eye-opening discussions like this one, head to our website at bossleappodcast.com. Always remember to celebrate your wins and trust yourself. A positive mindset can push you out of your comfort zone and into far greater heights. Until next time, may you be well.
Before we go, there's one more thing the lawyers have asked us to include. It's the legal language. And you know how doctors love lawyers. This podcast is presented only for educational and entertainment purposes. Although we are doctors, on this show, we are just your friends. This podcast is not intended as a substitute for the advice of your physician, professional coach, psychotherapist, or other qualified professionals. Understood? Awesome. We'll see you in the next episode.